Welcome, everybody. This is your man Cam, and we are here with the quick Blerdlines news. You know what it is? Me and D talk about the latest happenings of what's going on. And D, how you doing? How you doing?
Doing all right, man. It's a complex world we living in right now. Lots of craziness, and we ain't gonna get into all of it. But as far as the industry goes, it's even more insane.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of craziness going on. And, for everyone, all the old school fans, when we used to do Table of Truth, we used to do a lot of news of the week type of things. And we had a lot of takes on it, which was really fun. We might get back to that. We'll see what happens. But today we get to talk about money, and we get to talk about our good man, good old CEO, David Zaslav. So I'll let G explain a little bit about what's going on with our favorite CEO or Warner Brothers Discovery.
Well, recently, as you can see, the company lost in 2024 last year $11.5 billion, but he still got a 4.4% pay increase. So recently,
it's crazy.
The board it was a symbolically vote, denied him another increase, which would have given him even more money. I think it was somewhat 52
million. Yeah.
So consistently since this company has formed, he's gotten pay hikes every year, but
for what?
Net of the company has not improved. The net gain, they've lost more money. I can't say for definitively that they lost more than they made, but they've lost a significant amount, so much that their stocks went down 7% last year, and that's not good. And so the sort of existential question, the real question that the Variety writer posed was how is it that this guy is routinely given these pay hikes? And we're not talking about small numbers. We're talking significant amount.
Yeah, and I think also
Skid Row amount. Everybody in Skid Row gets a 2-story house, a car, and some enough to go to Disney World.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, too, it's like, they're already laying a bunch of groundwork to either sell pieces of their company or spin off some of it. And that's what's been, that's the other
at this point.
And that's kind of the other aspect of it, too. I mean, they do have some hits, too, which is cool, especially in this past quarter. Like, they had The Pit, they had White Lotus season 3, which also did good. They added about 5.3 million streaming subscribers and that kind of stuff. So it's like they're doing.
They had the Penguin was really big for them and successful. Yep. I think, Creature Commandos, because of its connection to, what James Gunn has going on with the DC studios, and that relaunch did really well for them. And I don't know what it did in terms of subscribers, but they've had some things that should have pulled them in the right direction. But and then, of course, recently, The Last of Us was really successful in its second season. But people noticed the same thing that happened with Last of Us, that happened with House of the Dragon season 2, and that apparently this has become an edict from our friendly, overpaid CEO, and that is that they're not doing over 8 episodes for a lot of these these prestige dramas, that sometimes they do need at least 8 to 10 episodes to really build to those kinds of narratives. And we saw how badly that impacted House of the Dragon season 2. And so now the internet and everybody that's paying attention, they're hip to what's going on. I've been reading some comments on social media, and people have been calling it out and saying, it's because this guy, David Zaslav, they call him by name, has thrown down this edict. Now, I haven't confirmed that, so I don't know how true that is. It could just be conjecture, as so much is on the internet. But, 2 shows that had that happen doesn't necessarily mean that that's policy.
Yeah. And I think also, too, it's like, you lose $1 billion, then you're like, hey, I think I should get a bump. And then rightfully so, the board, and it's non-binding, so it's more like, nah, we ain't giving you more money. But I think also it's one of those things where like you're not reading the room either, right? Like you're giving a bunch of money to your executives, but then your company is having layoffs, there's restructuring, there's uncertainty of your future. So again,
sell off assets and not stuff that you sell off. We're talking CNN and things that should be giant revenue streams for any media conglomerate. I don't think Fox News is anybody trying to buy Fox News right now, even with its reputation. You're talking billions, probably because of millions, at least because of the value that brand and network has. So,
it's so, like I said, but again, it kind of goes back to what happens with executives, right? As it kind of doesn't matter. Like it matters what happens with the company, but then they'll be good. Like say, for instance, they fire Zaslav, he'll get a nice golden parachute and then right off into the sunset. And
well, they won't fire him. They'll ask him to resign, and that's his version of you failed.
Yep.
But then there's no scenario that doesn't work in his favor right now. Yeah. The only problem is, where does that leave this company that has been created, and all of the millions, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who work for or with that company? It's got to be chaos behind the scenes. Anytime you can't settle or understand, like, my job is secure for more than 6 months at a time, that's got to be stressful for those people that are working.
And I think that's going to be the most interesting part, because like you said, you were talking about earlier, we have Superman coming up, which is going to be probably the biggest movie this year, which will drive, and it'll be interesting to see. And we don't think it's going to flop, but it'll have that. It has a tinge that it could.
That is still there, and there's some factors. It's going to be released around 4th of July weekend, which
classic.
But Superman is as American as apple pie, in terms of all that. So I guarantee you, there are families planning to pop fireworks, eat barbecue, and go see Superman in no particular order, because I'll give them credit. They've been marketing as they should, which is, this is not the glowering God fallen from space edgy suit. This is back to the Boy Scout who just wants to do this is the farm boy who wants to do the right thing because he believes in doing the right thing.
I'm falling asleep already. Just explaining it.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be, like I said, it's probably is needed for what they're trying to do. So that's cool. But I know for me, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna watch it because I do like Gunn. I like the choices he's doing. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah. But because I was never a Superman person. This is really what it comes down to.
Neither, my guy is always going to be the Dark Knight, Batman, and so many others. Not Cam, but so many others, and that's why they keep him in the fray, because he's a draw, and
it's true.
Superman was good, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely see. The other major news that we were talking about before too was our man Filoni might get a little job upgrade, or possibly, I should say. It's more than likely going to be him, but you never know. They could go take a left. But I think so now that Kathleen Kennedy is finally done with her reign of terror, with her reign, they're now looking at the next people who's going to pick it up, and it's either going to be Filoni or it's going to be was it Carrie Beck? I think it is.
I believe so.
Yeah, Carrie Beck.
People say that about Kathleen, about her, Kathleen Kennedy, but yet wasn't Rogue One under her watch?
Yep, that's the shining jewel. That's the one thing I will always give her. Every time someone talks bad about her, I'm like, yo, she helped greenlit and bankrolled Rogue One. So not like whatever you want to talk about, she still did that, and that's probably the best Star Wars movie that's happened.
And all the other shows were under her watch, so the good and the bad. So I think it's unfair to rake her over the coals. I've been hearing that for years, and I'm just like, but the problem isn't where the money is being spent. The problem is how the creative is going. Like
exactly.
That was always the issue.
And I think that's the thing too, where it's like, as we saw it too, like there is, even in the bad shows, quote unquote, there were still glimpses of things that could have been cool, right? Yeah. Like Acolyte was horrible, but the 17 minutes out of the whole season that was good was amazing. And so the same thing with even like Obi-Wan. Do we need it? Nope. Yeah, but there's parts of it that were like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. So, I mean, I think there's areas where like, there's improvements. I think Filoni, of course, is more the obvious because he is kind of like a protege of Lucas, but he's basically now, I think if he gets this job, he can now kick the Star Wars fanboy fanfiction guy.
Yeah, most likely. That was me being unfair to him, I think, a little bit. But I think the issue is that, and here's what the whole thing I meant about Kathleen Kennedy is that in this era, Filoni has also had a big role in approving the Star Wars creative. Case in point, The Acolyte. So I'm wondering how, I get that Filoni has done a lot of great things. Clone Wars, to me, the animated stuff that he's done far outweighs anything of the lot. I mean, it's so much better in terms of storytelling than any of the live action stories. But I don't get why, he gets a pass, but Kathleen Kennedy is raked over the coals. Like it seems like, I'm sitting rhetorically. I'm saying that, but it just seems to me that was a partnership, or at least they were a part of the same contingency. So he's got his strong ones, a lot more, that we celebrate him for. But she was there along the way, most of that time.
Exactly. Even and Carrie Beck as well. She's had a production. So all three of them are essentially the same team that did all of these, the good and the bad. And you're right, because Kennedy was the top. She was the one that got the most.
Buck stopped with her, and that's really what it is. It's just the buck stops with her. Yeah. But I think it should be a partnership between those two. I don't think that role should be just one.
I kind of agree. I think so too. Like, I mean, if they're smart, maybe they just do both. Kind of like what they did with Gunn and what's his name over at DC. Yeah. Like just let both of them do it. They can, apply to their strengths. I think Filoni will help on the creative end of things. I think Carrie Beck will make sure the production stuff, because we were talking about
what they've been doing. Like, this is to let them do what they continue to do. Just 100%. Role, give them the pay upgrade, and everybody's reporting to them. But she writes the checks, he approves the scripts or whatever it is.
Exactly, and I think that at least that little partnership could actually work better for the fans in general, and so then we can get more Andors and less Acolyte. Essentially, that's if things work out the right way,
and possibly a second shot with Acolyte. I mean, I wouldn't.
You know what?
That if they because it's not unknown for things to have an overhaul. Meaning, yes, season 1 they pull some things from that, but then they go a different direction and move from there. I'm okay with that, because I don't think that it got a fair shot. But at the end of the day, it wasn't very good, and you have to reconcile with that.
Yeah, and I think I'm still going to finish Skeleton Crew, do one-man review of it. I watched the first 3 episodes. It's Goonies in space, and that's exactly what they're going for. It's actually fun, and they did a good job for kids and that kind of a thing. I'm actually surprised. I should check my nieces. Yeah, I want to check if my nieces watched it or not. But yeah, it's fun. But I think if that would have came out before Acolyte, I think people would have had more of a positive reception to that, because I think they were so soured after the Acolyte, and that time Skeleton Crew, people just didn't care at that.
And even Acolyte came at the end of a Boba Fett, a lukewarm Ahsoka. Like what we respect a kind of Mandalorian season 3, so there was a lot of kind of like it wasn't going upward, it was just kind of edging down. Even Kenobi, as much as people like to praise it,
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Like, and I think that's the thing where out of all of those, the Acolyte had the most promise. The execution was horrible, but I think like there's parts in there where like, yeah, it could have been fun to watch a mini Sith and his apprentice go off and do some evil shit. That'd been fun. Like, let's see what happens, But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I'm going to be. I hope that they figure it out and then we can get back to stuff. Because again, this franchise ain't going nowhere, right? We're gonna get a bunch of shit that we didn't ask for, and they're just gonna keep doing it. So if that's the case, it's gonna be hopefully be in a way that is still enjoyable for the rest of us to enjoy it, And as George said back in like I think it was with Jon Stewart. He was on Jon Stewart. I think it was just promoting like Red Tails, by the way, which I actually rewatched recently. Horrible movie, but in a good way. It's like, hey, black actors, you guys want a job? Just want to hang out? It's like script's not that great. Action is amazing and CG is great, but like it's just bad. But anyways, but when he was doing press for that movie, John asked him, my favorite, it was probably one of my favorite lines from him, and he told his son that he was going to interview George on his show. And his son was like, oh my God, he's my favorite Star Wars movie is Phantom Menace. And then John tells his son, no, it's not. And then George starts laughing. And he's like, the interesting part that everyone forgets is there's so many different generations of Star Wars fans. So you have people that watched it in the 70s, people that got to rewatch it in the 80s, and people that rewatched it in the 90s. And then the 2000s came out, and then you had all the animation fans. Then you had the Phantom Menace fans, and then you had. So he's like each generation.
Now you have the sequel, because there are people who will swear by those sequels that they are really good and they are better than the prequels. And you have that, and he's right. By accident or design, that is where the Star Wars franchise is.
100%. And it gave me. Yeah, and it gave me a better appreciation for the fan base where I was kind of like, yeah, that totally makes sense. If I'm 10 and I watched freaking Force Awakens, that shit was amazing.
Yeah. You love Kylo Ren and like all of that stuff. And you have an appreciation for the legacy characters. I mean, especially if you're that young, you're not thinking about the things that we sometimes think about, which is the story structure, the production and all that stuff. And so Absolutely. You building new generations of new fans.
Smart.
I love the prequels because I saw them when I was really young, and so that was when I was getting into Star Wars. But even as an adult, I'll admit they're not great movies, but I still love them.
It's nostalgia, yeah. Darth Maul brings out his double lightsaber. It was,
oh man, I was in that theater. Come on.
Kylo Ren stops the blaster. It's the same thing. So I think it's going to be one of those things where, again, the corporate machine is going to be the corporate machine. This is what it is. But you're right. The magic for a lot of the younger kids, like there's a kid that probably just watched Skeleton Crew for the first time. That was his first Star Wars thing and probably loves it. And now is a fan for the next 20 years. So I think that's another aspect of it. That will be interesting. The last thing we'll do before we go is you got the chance to check out Predator. Was it Killers of Killers?
Killer of Killers, yes. Predator Killer of Killers. It was released.
Just dropped on Hulu.
Yeah, last week or at the end. No, Thursday, I believe, of this past week. But anyway, it's fairly new. Hulu, Disney had been promoting it for a while, and I think they wanted it to be sort of the buffer between Prey and this next live action Predator film, Badlands, which I think is coming this year. Or maybe next year. I think it's this year though. But directed also by Dan Trachtenberg. But it was good. As a person who, that is a great headline there, AV Club. Predator, Killer of Killers is a gruesome animated battle for the ages. Because the animation is good. I'm not like a big animation aficionado. I've said that before on the Blerdlines review show. But you guys, have opened my eyes to it a lot more. And this had to me, the hallmarks of really all of the good animation storytelling that you guys have described in the past. It had good characters. It had a good setup, a good story. The world building was phenomenal. It was the first time in all of Predator franchise history that the term Yacht-Ja, which is the actual name of the Predator species, was actually used. So really good, solid animated feature, and it really leaves you at a good point that sets you up for that next live action film. So if you are a fan of Predator, even if you don't like anime or animation, check this out, because it might change your mind about animation, but it'll definitely be satisfying Predator watch. Predator.
Yeah. Story. And we'll have a longer like actual review of it later, but I definitely wanted to keep, because like I said, we've brought you along on the animation journey, and you've come a long way. You've come a long way, sir. Yeah. Next is me liking horror movies. We'll see. That'll be my journey.
Well, that's a little different because there's less of those that are actually good, and so you have to kind of pick those. Those are one in every generation. Whereas anime, you get a good one of those quite often because there's a lot of people out there really doing some great work, some great stuff with animated storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, that's it for us. We'll see you guys later. We'll talk about some more things too. Predator review will definitely come around, and also, like always, like, subscribes, all the things. I got to get better at reminding people that we have all of these things. But yeah, man, other than that, we out, yo. Peace.